Now we come to the third Samyutta, which is a Kosala Samyutta. Kosala is one of the two famous countries during the Buddha's time along the Ganges Valley. So the king of Kosala is Pasenadi, Raja Pasenadi. He was a follower of the Buddha also. The first sutta. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then King Pasenadi of Kosala approached the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to the Blessed One, "Does Master Gotama too claim, I have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment?" Let's stop here for a while. So here it's obvious that this is probably the first or the second time that this King Pasenadi came to see the Buddha. So he doesn't really know the Buddha yet. So he's asking the Buddha, do you also claim to be enlightened? This is like some of the external sect teachers. Then the Buddha said, if great king, one speaking rightly could say of anyone, he has awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. It is of me that one should rightly say this, for I, great king, have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. So here Buddha is stating very firmly that he is enlightened. If anyone is in the world is enlightened at all, the Buddha said, I am enlightened. And then King Pasenadi said, Master Gotama, even those ascetics and Brahmins who are the heads of orders and companies, the teachers of companies, well-known and famous founders of sects considered by the multitude to be holy men, that is, Purana Kassapa, Makali Kosala, Niganta Nataputta, Sanjaya Belati Putta, Pakuda Kachayana, Ajita Kesa Kambali. Even these, when I asked them whether they had awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment, did not claim to have done so. So why then should Master Gotama make such a claim when he is so young in years and has newly gone forth? I'll stop here for a moment. You see, the Buddha was enlightened at the age of about 35. So this must have been around that time when he was 36 or 37. Still very young, black hair and all that. So this king is saying, you are so young, you have been a monk such a short time. How can you claim to be enlightened? These other teachers, they are so old, they have been monks for so long, and so they never claim to have been enlightened. And the Buddha said, there are 4 things, great king, that should not be despised and disparaged as young. What 4? The Khattiya, or warrior, noble, one from a royal family, a noble family. The Khattiya, great king, should not be despised and disparaged as young. A snake should not be despised and disparaged as young. A fire should not be despised and disparaged as young. And a monk should not be despised and disparaged as young. These are the 4. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One, the teacher, further said, one should not despise as young a Khattiya of noble birth, a high-born prince of glorious fame. A man should not disparage him, for it may happen that this Lord of men, this Khattiya, shall gain the throne, and in his anger thrash one harshly with a royal punishment. Therefore, guarding one's own life, one should avoid him. One should not despise as young a serpent one may see by chance in the village or a forest. A man should not disparage it, for as that fierce snake glides along, manifesting in diverse shapes, it may attack and bite the food, whether a man or a woman. Therefore, guarding one's own life, one should avoid it. One should not despise as young a blazing fire that devours much, a conflagration with blackened trail. A man should not disparage it, for if it gains a stock of fuel, having become a conflagration, it may attack and burn the food, whether a man or a woman. Therefore, guarding one's own life, one should avoid it. When a fire burns down a forest, that conflagration with blackened trail, the shoots there spring to life once more as the days and nights pass by. But if a monk of perfect virtue burns one with his virtue's fire, one does not gain sons and cattle, nor do one's heirs acquire wealth. Childless and heirless they become, like stumps of palmyra trees. Therefore a person who is wise, out of regard for his own good, should always treat these properly: a fierce serpent and the blazing fire, a famous Katya and a monk of perfect virtue. When this was said, King Pasenadi of Kosala said to the Blessed One, Magnificent Venerable Sir, magnificent Venerable Sir, the Dhamma has been made clear in many ways by the Blessed One, as though he were turning upright what had been turned upside down, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go for refuge to the Blessed One, and to the Dhamma, and to the Bhikkhu Sangha. From today, let the Blessed One remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life. So this is the sutta where the Pasenadi first becomes a disciple of the Buddha. So the Buddha is telling him, don't look down on 4 things just because they are young or small. What are these 4? The first one is somebody from the royal family, what we call a Tungku. Buddha says, if you despise him, one day when he sits on the throne, he becomes a king, he will remember and you will be in big trouble. The second one is poisonous snake. Sometimes a poisonous snake may be small, but don't think you can play the fool with him, because when a poisonous snake bites you, the venom, the poison is the same as a big snake. Only thing, the baby snake has a smaller amount of poison, but then that poison is enough to kill us. The third one is a fire. Even the fire is a small fire. If you neglect it, it can burn down your house. Then the fourth one is a virtuous monk. Sometimes when a monk is new in monkhood, some people they look down on the monk. They think the monk is not famous. There's some lay people always like to chase after famous monks. So when the monk is not famous, sometimes they look down on the monk and they talk bad about the monk. So later when the monk becomes Arya, then they will be in big trouble. The karma is very heavy. 3.2 at Savatthi. Then King Pasenadi of Kosala approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, how many things are there which, when they arise within a person, arise for his harm, suffering and discomfort? And the Buddha said, there are, great King, 3 things which when they arise within a person, arise for his harm, suffering and discomfort. What are the 3? Greed, hatred and delusion. These are the 3 things which when they arise within a person, arise for his harm, suffering and discomfort. Greed, hatred and delusion, arisen from within oneself, injure the person of evil mind, as its own fruit destroys the reed. So here there are 3 poisons, 3 defilements that cause beings to suffer. Greed, greed for pleasures in the world, worldly pleasures. The second one is hatred, intense anger, hatred. The third one is delusion. Delusion is very hard to see because when we are deluded, we can't see our own delusion. And then the delusion is due to the 5 hindrances namely sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So these 5 things envelop us. So because we don't see things clearly, so we have a lot of delusion. 3.3 at Savatthi. Sitting to one side, King Pasenadi of Kosala said to the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, for one who has taken birth, is there anything other than to expect? Is there anything other than aging and death? And the Buddha said, for one who has taken birth, great King, there is nothing other to expect than aging and death. Even in the case of those affluent Katyas, those of the noble family, rich with great wealth and property, with abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, abundant wealth and grain. Because they have taken birth, there is nothing other to expect than aging and death. Even in the case of those affluent Brahmins, affluent householders, rich with abundant wealth and grain, because they have taken birth, there is nothing other to expect than aging and death. Even in the case of those monks who are arahants, whose stains or asavas are destroyed, who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, utterly destroyed the fetters of existence, and are completely liberated through final knowledge. Even for them, this body is subject to breaking up, subject to being laid down. The beautiful chariots of kings wear out. This body too undergoes decay. But the Dhamma of the good does not decay. So the good proclaim along with the good. It's the end of the sutta. So here the king is asking the Buddha, is there anyone who does not become old and die? The Buddha said, there's no body, no being at all who does not age and die. So actually the cause of death is not, when people die, people say, oh, his cause of death was cancer. His cause of death was this sickness, his cause of death was that sickness. Actually his cause of death was birth. Because he was born, he must die. What is not born will not die. 3.4 At Savatthi, sitting to one side, King Pasenadi of Kosala said to the Blessed One, Here, Venerable Sir, while I was alone in seclusion, a reflection arose in my mind thus, who now treat themselves as dear, and who treat themselves as a foe or enemy. Then, Venerable Sir, it occurred to me, those who engage in misconduct of body, speech and mind treat themselves as a foe or enemy. Even though they may say, we regard ourselves as dear, still they treat themselves as a foe. For what reason? Because of their own accord, they act towards themselves in the same way that a foe might act towards a foe. Therefore, they treat themselves as a foe. But those who engage in good conduct of body, speech and mind treat themselves as dear. Even though they may say, we regard ourselves as a foe, still they treat themselves as dear. For what reason? Because of their own accord, they act towards themselves in the same way that a dear person might act towards one who is dear. Therefore, they treat themselves as dear. And the Buddha said, so it is, great king, so it is, great king. And the Buddha repeated the entire statement of King Pasenadi and added the following. If one regards oneself as dear, one should not yoke oneself to evil. For happiness is not easily gained by one who does a wrongful deed. When one is seized by the end maker, that means death, as one discards the human state, what can one call truly one's own? What does one take when one goes? What follows one along like a shadow that never departs? Both the merits and the evil that a mortal does right here, this is what truly is one's own. This one takes when one goes. This is what follows one along like a shadow that never departs. Therefore, one should do what is good as a collection for the future life. Merits are the support of living beings when they arise in the other world. So, this wise king, Pasenadi, is saying that if we conduct ourselves well in body, speech and mind, then we are dear to ourselves. We are our best friend. But if we misconduct ourselves, we do evil karma to the body, speech and mind, then we are doing to ourselves what an enemy would like to do to you, make you go to the woeful plains of existence. So if you don't want to harm yourself, you should conduct yourself virtuously, do good deeds to the body, speech and mind. Then you are treating yourself in the best way and you will bring yourself to heavenly rebirth. 3.6 At Savatthi, sitting to one side, King Pasenadi of Kosala said to the Blessed One, Here, Venerable Sir, while I was alone in seclusion, a reflection arose in my mind thus, Few are those people in the world who, when they obtain superior possessions, do not become intoxicated and negligent, yield to greed for sensual pleasures, and mistreat other beings. Far more numerous are those people in the world who, when they obtain superior possessions, become intoxicated and negligent, yield to greed for sensual pleasures, and mistreat other living beings. And the Buddha said, so it is, great king, so it is, great king. And the Buddha repeated exactly what King Pasenadi said and added, enamored with their pleasures and wealth, greedy, dazed by sensual pleasures, they do not realize they have gone too far, like deer that enter the trap laid out. Afterwards, the bitter fruit is theirs, for bad indeed is the result. That's the end of the sutta. So here, King Pasenadi is saying that he reflected, came to the conclusion, most people in the world, when they become very wealthy, they become intoxicated and careless, and then they become very greedy for sensual pleasures and mistreat other beings, like look down on other people and all that. Very, very few do not yield to greed for sensual pleasures and become intoxicated. So having great wealth is actually not good. You see many people who become very rich, they take second wife, third wife and all that, and they misconduct themselves. At the end of life, they have used up all the good karma vipaka, and they are bound for the woeful plains of existence. Very few are like now our Bill Gates, who spend so much, such a big portion of his wealth to do charity and help others. 3.8 at Savatthi. Now on that occasion, King Pasenadi of Kosala had gone together with Queen Mallika to the upper terrace of the palace. Then King Pasenadi of Kosala said to Queen Mallika, "Is there, Mallika, anyone more dear to you than yourself?" And Mallika said, "There is no one, great king, more dear to me than myself. But is there anyone, great king, more dear to you than yourself?" You see, I stop here for a moment. So you see this King Pasenadi, I think his favorite wife, I don't know how many wives he has, but probably the favorite wife is Queen Mallika. And according to the commentaries, Queen Mallika was a poor girl selling flowers. And King Pasenadi, I think he went to war and he lost the fight, lost the battle. He had to go and hide. So when he was in hiding, I think he met this Mallika. And Mallika probably didn't know that he was a king. So then he took this Mallika as his wife when he went back to the throne. So probably he loved this Queen Mallika so much. He wanted to know whether Queen Mallika loved him also. That's why he asked, is there anyone more dear to you than yourself? But this Mallika was a very devoted disciple of the Buddha. And being very wise, he said, no, there's nobody more dear to me than myself. Everyone now, because of our ego, we love ourselves the most. There's nobody we love more than ourselves. But some people, they think they love other people more than themselves. Then they are either silly or hypocritical. Then Queen Mallika was afraid that the king might get angry. He also asked the king, "How about you? Is there anybody you love more than yourself?" And the king said, "For me too, Mallika, there is no one more dear than myself." Then King Pasenadi of Kosala descended from the palace and approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, sat down to one side, and related to the Blessed One his conversation with Queen Mallika. Then the Blessed One, having understood the meaning of this, on that occasion recited this verse: "Having traversed all quarters with the mind, one finds none anywhere dearer than oneself. Likewise, each person holds himself most dear. Hence, one who loves himself should not harm others." So the Buddha is saying, just like we love ourselves dearly, so every living being also values his life, loves himself. So just as you don't want others to harm you, so you should not harm others. Just as you want others to be good to you, so you should be good to others. It's about 1 hour, so I think I'll stop here. And if there are any questions, we can discuss. Okay. Yeah, last night we talked about the 4 pairs of Aryans. And now the question is, where do we place the Gotrabhu? The Gotrabhu is supposed to be a person who will not fall into the woeful plains, isn't it? But he is not considered an Arya. Now in some other sutta, I've come across, the Buddha says there are only 9 types of beings in the world. The Putujana, or ordinary being, plus the 8 Aryans. The 8 Aryans are the first path, first fruit, second path, second fruit, third path, third fruit, and fourth path, fourth fruit. Now in the Samyutta Nikaya 25.1, it is stated that when a person attains the first path, it takes some time before it becomes the first fruit, Sotapanna. But definitely in that lifetime, it will turn from path to fruit. So my personal view is that it applies also for the second path, third path, and fourth path. When a person attains any one of these paths, it will automatically turn to fruit within his lifetime. As far as the Gotrabhu is concerned, the Buddha, in some suttas, the Buddha talk about some people who have great faith in the Buddha, great faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. But because maybe they have not learned the Dhamma or the suttas enough, then they have not become an Arya. But because they have great faith in the Buddha and love for the Buddha, will prevent them from going to the woeful plains. That's provided they don't do evil karma. So I think this Gotrabhu is that type of person. That means a virtuous person, but not yet an Arya. Maybe on the way to becoming an Arya.
Some universities where the person that teach Dhamma is a monk. So is it right way that any person can teach monk Dhamma?
A lay person teaching a monk. Now the Buddha says that whenever we want to look for a teacher, we should look for a teacher, or one who is qualified to be our teacher, is one whose sila, samadhi, and panya, oral conduct, concentration, and wisdom is higher than you. If these 3 things are not higher than you, then he is not qualified to be your teacher. So that's the way to judge. So it's not easy to judge a person. The Buddha says, to know a person well, you have to associate over a long period with that person, and you got to be very, you got to be sharp. You are able to notice his character. So it's not easy to judge a person in a short time.
During Buddha time, there's a lot of those perspectives and there's so many meditation. And then some of them, they also don't agree with Buddha's words, even if they have a good samadhi or whatever.
So
what does this imply of Why are they not? Because their Dhamma is so weak, their mind is so clear. When they come to Buddha and Buddha gives the Dhamma, more or less they stop.
Oh, so your question is why do some people they have good samadhi, and why can't they accept the Buddha's teachings? Sometimes it is due to ego. Many of them they are already famous teachers, so they will not submit themselves to be a disciple of somebody else. Very few have the humility to do that. So unless they can be willing to really listen to the Dhamma, because if that person is not keen to be a disciple, his ego will prevent him from really listening to the Dhamma. You got to pay thorough attention when the Buddha says the condition for right view. There are two conditions for right view. One, you got to hear the voice of somebody teaching the Dhamma to you. The second one is yoniso manasikara. Yoniso manasikara is paying full attention. A lot of people, when they come to listen to the Dhamma, for various reasons, one is the ego. They are not very interested to listen. They think they have already, like these external sect teachers, they think they have already attained something. They are not willing to really listen to the Dhamma. That's why if a person wants to learn from a teacher, that person, one of the conditions, then he has to humble himself. In one of the suttas, the Buddha admonished one of the monks, one of the Buddha's disciples, because probably he thought there are a lot of people, when they come to learn with a teacher, they have a lot of views, they have a lot of fixed views. So sometimes they try to argue with the teacher and all that. So the Buddha says, told that monk, that when you learn from a teacher, you should have that view that the teacher knows more than me. So because when you are humble enough to think that the teacher knows more than you, then you will actually listen properly to what the teacher is trying to tell you. But sometimes when the teacher is trying to tell you something, it takes time to get the message across. Sometimes he says something you don't understand, and then another day he has to put it in another way. And then if you don't understand, again he has to try to make you see by trying to explain in another way. But if you are not interested, you try to argue with him and you try to think otherwise, you can never learn. So that's why you see, like for Christian renunciants, priests and brothers and all that, I always say they take 3 vows. One is a vow of chastity, the vow of poverty, and the third is a vow of obedience, to always be obedient to the teacher. A lot of people, they are not qualified to be a student because they don't have the attitude, the humility of a student. They keep judging the teacher, always trying to judge the teacher, and trying to gauge the teacher, and all that. Not willing to submit themselves.
Just like you say here, there are 2 conditions to learning the Dhamma. One is listen. I mean, in olden, the other one is paying full attention. But in the olden times, there's no recording, written books and all. But nowadays we have books and all. Would we be able to learn Dhamma from somebody?
Oh yes, definitely. When you say listen to the Dhamma from another person, that includes reading. When you read the books of the Buddha, the Buddha's words, it's as though the Buddha was sitting next to you and teaching you the Dhamma. So a lot of people, they are so foolish. They don't realize the value of the Nikayas. This Nikayas has been transmitted down to us over 2,000 years by so many monks and so many arahants. And they have taken so much trouble to preserve these books down to us. And we are so foolish because it is so hard to meet the true Dhamma. The Buddha said he contemplated the last 91 world cycles. He only saw 6 Sammasambuddhas willing to teach the Dhamma. And now of these 6 Sammasambuddhas, 3 of them are on this earth, in this world cycle. Which means in the last 90 world cycles, there were only 3 Sammasambuddhas willing to teach the Dhamma. Right? Which means it takes about 30 world cycles to meet the true Dhamma. 30 world cycles. The Buddha said 1 world cycle is so long, it's hard to imagine how long it is. And the Buddha said, to give you a simile, the Buddha said, you imagine a rock, a solid piece of rock, 1 yojana, which means 10 kilometers tall, 10 kilometers wide, and the breadth is also 10 kilometers. So a cube of solid rock, a cube 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. And then the Buddha said, imagine the time to weigh it down to nothing. And you have a soft cloth, say like a silk cloth. You are only allowed to rub that rock once in 100 years. Once in 100 years you rub it once. And then you have to wait for another 100 years before you can rub it again. How long before you can wear away that rock? That is how long a world cycle is. So the Buddha said, it's so hard to imagine how long it is. And it takes 30 world cycles before you can meet the Dhamma. So now that the Dhamma is in front of us, we don't want to take the trouble to go and study and attain right view. After you pass away from here, you are not going to meet the Dhamma for extremely many rebirths. And when that happens, if you can remember, you regret.
Because especially the first thing when we are talking about this kind of thing, it's a lot of devas and all this. I mean, my only thing is somehow my mind rejected it because it is it's not real. I mean, to me, I can't comprehend it as real deva and all this real. Today's one, when you think Kasata and all this, we know such a person exists. So for me, it's a bit difficult to accept that as a...
Yeah, I can understand.
Put it in a, my mind was still in a story.
I can understand. You know why? Because probably for the whole of your life, you're not going to meet any deva. But why is it in the suttas we meet so many devas? Because during the Buddha's time, there were so many arahants. It's because of the arahants, the devas are interested to come and see them and to talk to them. The devas are not interested to meet ordinary people. Why should they come and waste their time and visit you and talk to you? They got so many beautiful devis to play with. They have no time for you. Even you pray to them to come also, they won't come. These are different. These are arahants. They will come to the arahants without invitation. You see, sometimes in the suttas, there are some other suttas, the Buddha says, you look at the devas, they have come to pay respect to the Buddha. The Buddha says from the 10,000 world systems, they have come to pay respect to the Buddha. So it's because during the Buddha's time, there were so many arahants that they keep coming. Nowadays, where they want to come? Mara is very powerful, Satan. Even in the suttas, we find some of the devas, like in the Brahma heavens, they are actually superior to him, higher level, and yet he can possess some of them, control their mind, influence their thinking. Yeah. Yeah. Because they cannot take possession of the mind of Arahant. Okay, stop here.